Why do the rich get richer? And what is it that they're doing that the middle class and the poor are not? A lot of people say they're not interested in money, yet they work over 8 hours a day just to pay the bills. If there's one book that has completely transformed my life, that is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It has fundamentally changed the way I think about personal finance in terms of assets and liabilities. To some it may be obvious, but to people like me it wasn't that clear at the start, and that's why it really opened my mind. Robert teaches that an asset is something that puts money into your pocket versus a liability that is something that takes money out of your pocket. And there's a common misconception that luxuries like your brand new car on the drive are actually an asset, when in fact it's a liability because it takes money out of your pocket every single month. The same goes for designer clothes, buying the latest iPhone every single year, or other kind of tech gadgets that actually aren't assets in themselves. Once you understand that instead of putting your money into liabilities, if instead you invest it into an asset first, you can then get that asset to pay for luxuries and liabilities. That way your money is always growing and those pay for the costs and the expenses. And rather than saying, I can't afford this, instead you should be asking, how can I afford this? And be in a position where rather than you working for money 24 hours a day, money is working for you 24 hours a day. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Matt. I work for a bank by day, I invest in property on the side, and on this channel we explore all things money, finance and property investing to help people lead a more financially savvy life. So if you want a shortened version, here is the book in 3 sentences. Rich Dad Poor Dad is about Robert Kiyosaki and his 2 dads. One is his biological dad and another is his friend's dad. Robert's real dad is a middle class, working, well-educated professional in a good job earning a decent amount of money. His mantra is all about studying hard, getting your qualifications, and then getting into a solid job all of your life to make sure that you are safe and secure. And then there is Robert's second dad, who owns his own business and teaches Robert about personal finance. And these 2 dads have completely contrasting views about the world of personal finance. Secondly, you don't need to earn a lot of money to be considered wealthy. Wealth is a measure of how long you could survive if your income stopped tomorrow, and there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. For example, if you had a massive mortgage, sent your kids to private school, had very expensive cars, and loads of outgoings, yes, you're rich, but if your salary stopped tomorrow or you became ill or lost your job, if you would only survive 2 months, then you're not a wealthy person. Whereas if you earned only £10,000 a year, yet spent the minimum amount of money possible, you could last more than 2 months. Therefore, you could last longer than the person who has all of those liabilities and luxuries. And thirdly, rich people buy assets, not liabilities, to fund their luxuries and their lifestyle. So when you hear somebody saying that they've got a great asset on the drive, which is their Range Rover, their perspective on finance is all wrong. To bring this all to life, if I wanted to finance a brand new car, rather than taking that money out of my salary every single month and paying for the car directly, if I have a pot of savings of say £30,000 and I wanted to invest in a property, and by the way I have a video here which covers this exact topic, but you could invest that money into a house and then benefit from the capital growth of the property price over time, but also benefit from the rental income. And it's the profits from that rental income that could then pay for a nice Range Rover or a sports car on the drive. Secondly, another great mind frame is your perspective on money and affording very expensive things. Now, typically a lot of people think, I can't afford this item, whether that's the brand new MacBook, whether it's a fancy new car, but instead, rich people ask themselves, how can I afford this? And that shift in mindset is completely fundamental to rethinking how you manage your own finances. Instead, if you can then set a plan and work towards a goal to fund something or to buy an asset which then pays for that expensive liability, then that's a great way that the rich manage their finances. Robert teaches in the book that the first way to building wealth is changing your perception on risks. Now, the rich know and understand how to manage risks, whereas the middle class and the poor don't want to manage them whatsoever. They're scared of risk and therefore they don't take those big decisions. One way to get over this is put a small amount of money aside, an amount of money that you don't think is that valuable and that you wouldn't mind losing. And by playing with this money, by putting it into high risk stocks or trying to create a small business venture, that way that will completely change your perception of risk. The book also teaches that you should focus on paying yourself first. Traditionally with a 9-to-5 job, what happens is that all of the tax and the national insurance and all those costs that the government take are taken upfront, and then you are paid last after the government have got their hands on all of your gross income. Whereas if you have a business, what businesses and corporations tend to do is spend as much money as possible. Therefore, all of that is tax-free, and then the government only get what's left at the end. So if you have a limited limited company, you can buy things like a nice microphone, a great camera, a brand new laptop, and then whatever's left is taxed after that. This means that in the UK, you could save around 50% on any particular item. This is because if you're a higher rate taxpayer, tax, national insurance and student loan roughly come to around 50%. So by buying a brand new camera on my business, I've therefore saved half price compared to paying myself, paying all of that tax and national insurance that I would have paid anyway. Robert also teaches that there's absolutely no rush whatsoever. There are loads of get-rich-quick schemes online, but it's not about being wealthy very quickly. Wealth is generated over a long period of time, thanks to the power of compounding. Robert teaches in the book that you should stick to your 9-to-5 job, keep earning money, and slowly, over time, by investing in assets, at some point in life, the income from those assets will begin to overtake your current income in your job. And by paying yourself first rather than last, you'll realise that you don't actually need as much money to make the same amount of net income at the end of the month. The general population are run by two emotions, which is fear and greed, and that puts them into a rut and a cycle and the rat race of get up, go to work, commute to the office, and work 9 to 5 every single day. Instead of confronting the fear, we instead react with emotion. There's desire, which is greed. And this is why people work for money. We work for the joy we think it can buy, but the joy that it brings is short-lived, and we need more money for more joy, more pleasure, and more comfort. That's why people are fanatical about going to school, getting a steady job, and getting a great qualification to get a solid job for life. You should instead be using your emotions to think, not thinking with your emotions. For example, have you ever told yourself, I deserve a pay rise, or I need to get another job, or that you want a job because it's secure? Instead of asking yourself, is there something that we're missing? I discovered this book about 1.5 years ago and it completely blew my mind. It's really popular within the property investing community, and a lot of property investors were inspired and started because they read this book first. And it really is a crash course on financial education. I've listened to some great podcasts, including one on inside property investing where Mike Clay was talking about how his mind was completely blown and he wishes that he would have read that book many, many years ago. I'm glad that I managed to find it at about 25 years old and that I'm not 30 or 40 and later in my career. I think this book is great for anyone who is interested in personal finance and wants to understand more what is the best way to manage your money. The book doesn't teach you anything about how to make money or strategies. It's all about how to manage it and what wealth and what the rich actually are and how to kind of build this into a framework. And there are 5 big ideas that really resonate with me from this book. 1. The poor and middle class work for money, whereas the rich have money work for them. 2. It's not about how much money you make that matters, it's about how much you keep. 3. Rich people acquire assets, the poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. 4. Financial aptitude is what you do with money once you make it, how you keep people from taking it from you, how to keep it longer, and how you make money work harder for you. And 5. The single most powerful asset we have is our own mind. The book simply breaks down the difference between the poor, the middle class, and the rich. The poor have a job which brings in an income which they then pay expenses for, and then they're left with no money at the end of the month. The middle class, they have a bit more of an income and a greater job, so therefore their job and their salary pays for things like liabilities, whether that's a mortgage, a car loan, credit card debt, or school loans, which then they pay for expenses, which are things like taxes, mortgage payments, and general utility bills and costs, and then they're left with pretty much nothing. Whereas the rich have their income, which is rental income, dividends, interest and royalties, which then pay for assets, and it's those assets that then bring them income back into their balance sheet, and therefore it becomes an almost infinite return. And that's how the rich pay for their mortgages, their cars, and their very expensive items, and that's why the rich get richer. And that leaves me with a fantastic quote from the book. The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. If it's trained well, we can create enormous wealth. I hope you found this video useful. Rich Dad Poor Dad is one of my favourite personal finance books. If you're interested in any other videos, I have a video just here about how to invest in property through a limited company. I've also got an amazing beginner's guide and playlist to property investing. So feel free to check out one of these videos and I'll see you on the other side.